is called, the next poem is what I would consider an olio poem. Olio meaning a miscellaneous of things. This term was coined by the prize-winning collection by Tyehimba Jess, called Olio. Olio was a collection he wrote, I think it was published in 2017, commenting on the African-American experience and the, you know, the tragedies behind being an African-American throughout history, American history. It's also a mention of blues music and how blues music infiltrated the time and gave way to freedom, a voice, freedom of the art, the Harlem Renaissance, etc. The poem is written like 2 blocks. The reason I would like to show it to you is because, like I said, olio is defined as a miscellaneous things, but they're very organized. So while the poem can be read vertically, horizontally, it could also be read in other ways as well. So what I'm going to do is I'll read it 2 ways for you so you understand the concept. But again, it's like Tyehimba Jess's work, it's based around being a marginalized person, in my case, being Jewish. It's called I Am a Jew. The left side of the poem, just to give credit to Shakespeare, comes from Act 3, Merchant of Venice. It's Shylock's important monologue. I am a Jew. Have not a Jew eyes, have not a Jew hands, organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions, hurt with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases, healed by the same means. If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? If you wrong us, shall we not revenge? Who silently wept the carried corpses to and from ovens, over time ended up numb, flogged, but I didn't cry. Burnt and experimented on. Was death a blessing? I asked a capo tattooist. Yes, a blessing I cannot afford. We looked up at all the fleshy smoke, he said. Learn to turn revenge's cheek. What I'll do now is I'll read it vertically. I'm sorry, horizontally. Have not a Jew eyes who silently wept? Have not a Jew hands that carry corpses, organs, dimensions, to and from ovens, senses, affections, passions over time, ended up numb, hurt with the same weapons, flogged, but I didn't cry. Subject to the same diseases, burnt and experimented on, healed by the same means. Was death a blessing? If you prick us, do we not bleed? I asked a capo tattooist. If you tickle us, do we not laugh? Yes, a blessing I cannot afford. If you poison us, do we not die? We look up at all the fleshy smoke. If you wrong us, shall we not revenge? He said, learn to turn revenge's cheek. The next one is also an olio poem, which is actually based on a student of mine who is no longer here, who passed. Climax, teaching Elie Wiesel's Night. The doctor won't do anything for him. So should Elie eat his dying father's food, I asked. The doctor can't do anything for him. I would, John, 14 with terminal cancer, says. You cannot think of others. Food is so scarce. Imagine you're in a concentration camp, dying. Luke interrupts John. Every man has to fight for himself. You would let your own father starve? It is too late. There's nothing you can do for him. Luke shouts. You don't know what it's like to be dying. The left side is italicized excerpts from Weisel's memoir, Night. This is called Desiderata. Soft shells nestle in a plastic dish. Depression coats me, like the melted cheese smothering shells I could see myself hiding in. I suppressed my tears long enough to say, no, I'm good. When the man behind the counter asked, can I help you? I wanted to say yes. I'm striving to be happy. I'm trying to speak my truth quietly, clearly. This pan of macaroni and cheese makes me feel lonely, less lonely, sorry, like a child of the universe again, but it's not from my mother's kitchen where her Desiderata quote hangs, telling me to be myself. Where her double boiler was, she just threw out because it was old, the one with the broken handle, where hundreds of sunny sticks of butter melted into snowy flour before it all mixed to make a saucy texture. She'd remind me day after day of pushing around the elderly in wheelchairs in a nursing home. Enjoy your achievements. Where I asked her, though I knew the answer, how she found the energy to cook a hot meal from scratch after working all day. Enjoy your plans, she'd say. I love you. I planned dinner and just cooked. It's a form of affection. Don't feign affection. I needed her to remind me not to feign affection. Be gentle with myself and love. For in the face of arity and disenchantment, it's perennial as the grass. And laughter I can't keep. And I imagine the child in me scooping the excess cheese from the obsolete double boiler, cheese that dries up like syrupy youth. It's the child in me that can take kindly the counsel of years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. My mother's smiling gaze, pouring herself in with Velveeta, spreading pride over every noodle. Let me remember what peace there may be in the silence of her happiness, blanketing like sauce before she says, the universe is unfolding, as it should. Her hands turned to spoons where she scooped breadcrumbs from the can and sprinkled them like dandelion dust. Show me her hair more strawberry than salt. When I looked up and reached for her hand, when my steps extended no further than her fingers intertwined with mine, where I can close aging's oyster and she can't lose time's pearl. Rockefeller Center, December 2019. Towering over the plaza, Prometheus holds his fire in a fennel stalk guarding couples sailing around the ice rink. Gusts sharp as arrowheads push me towards the unveiling. A chopped down tree dolled up in tinsel mascara, ornaments resembling wrecking balls and a girdle of garland. When I spot her face, where she begged 27 years ago. I imagine the imprint of a body on the wall where she leaned. Is that what's left of her? The way something always remains, like a new sheet of paper where a picture once hung. I can still see her wearing nothing but a glad bag, holes cut out for arms and head, knees pressed to chest, arms hugging legs, on the ground, a Dixie cup rocking. It's been years since my mind has dragged her from the past, frozen, similar to when I first saw her. Without my wallet, allowance, I couldn't give her anything. I settled for shared shivers. Currents passed through us like lightning forking a tree trunk. Wind waxed strong in our limbs until my father's voice, let's go, jolted me out of her world. He grabbed my teenage hand. I dawdled, glancing back one more time at her and prayed to whatever gods. Make me magical enough to steal Prometheus's stolen flames, strong enough to melt the gilded gold with my breath and brave enough to hand her a bouquet of fire. She's just an elevator, temporary transport away from the marriage of suits and lies to a lobby in a motor inn. Some guy pays to enter. The owner ignores her face that doesn't match her picture ID. He winks and hands the nameless a key to a cabin whose floors are congealed in boot prints of other Johns. Bugs move between plaster and wallpaper, same as her daughter reading Braille. Fingers swimming across the pages pool like a typewriter carriage before its ding sings, "You got a second? Get out of this now." Cold hands jolt her back, bend and hoist her over a table garnished with fake roses caked in dust. Pressing her face into the wood over and over, he is in a hurry to get back to work. She's the up and down button that will make him come faster. She tries to ignore her worn and sore shaft with thoughts of her daughter before cancer took her vision. This helps her open for seconds and slowly seals herself with a stranger inside. After our first talk in 4 years, I hung up and searched for you on Earth's web. It's how we look for someone today. If we're afraid to meet or leave some love on a machine. Memory rewound our talk, your words. I'm open if you want to meet face to face. I couldn't. It took years for transferences burn to bronze and fade. Even now, if someone calls your name, I stop, hope, and not hope you're near, hoping temptation doesn't blurt. Tell me one of your stories. This heart is starved. Remind me the real matter is that I matter. Whisper and lean in as you would when the essential surfaced. When you spoke of friends who lost their infant, who pulled off the freeway after the funeral, got out and unbuckled the baby's car seat, dumped it on the shoulder. Hours later, they went back to find it gone. Inheriting trees after Adrienne Rich's poem, The Trees. Over the phone, the head pimp talks in code. Give me a baker's dozen of cookies, a good mix. 4 chocolate chip, 3 gingerbread, 2 oatmeal, 2 macadamia, 1 sugar. Girls in the back of a truck, cuffed, spine against spine, ankles, cuffed spine against spine, ankles shackled by trackers. These 2 teens have heard of the house between 2 trees. An old barn whose wood roof droops after the pounding of an ice storm. Beyond 2 trees stand like soldiers guarding the darkness of a small room. The landslide of a mattress leans against the wall. A chocolate chip's 14-year-old face vanishes into a rusted spot on the fabric. Before he finishes, stubble scratches skin. She bites. Elegy for my youth. What if monkey bars are still waiting for me to climb, or the turtle shell sprinkler still spouted water, like some cloud on the ground burst open? Let my brother and me still make believe our playground is a diamond. Race to the water fountain, turn first base. Can I pretend the seal statue has remained second? Will my arms reach a rainbow where third base, our golden retriever, waits for me to push him down heaven's slide into a hug of grass? Let my mother sit on a wooden bench, legs stretched out, reading Women's Day or Good Housekeeping. Let her be home. I see her smiling, chewing bazooka, watching us. My brother laughing while arguing balls and strikes, fair and foul hits. Would he still try to blow heaters by me when I bat? Let people stop to ask, why did you learn to hit like that? Where are the ancient oaks, our gloveless fielders, whose leaves waved and clapped from the outfield? Let my brother be 8 again, running and grinning out of the park like he's just swallowed the sun's rays. When my mother screams, you want ice cream? Can the giant cone on the shop's roof still twirl and swirl like a belly dancer? Please let the Carvel bell ding when we step and push open the door. Is the owner who served us wearing a paper hat, rolling a chocolate chip globe in a cone still alive? Can someone tell me where I left a lifetime of giggles after he shook a spoonful of sprinkles over the scoop of a melting world? Will my brother still let chocolate drip and stain his shirt while my mother wipes and bites into her butter pecan? Riding home, let her humming lull my brother to rest on my shoulder. His knees grass stained, ice cream dry to cherub cheeks, the glove we shared napping in my lap, my hand gripping the only baseball we didn't lose.
Melissa, we've probably got time for one more.
Okay, thank you for telling me that. For my teenage student in the last stage of terminal cancer, swing from a Wisconsin willow, not gone is the mellow stream where frogs still try to leap and tease, trying to snatch mosquito shadows in a brook. Flip from the tire swing into the lake's creek to impress your best friend. She's the one you long to love and don't know why. Bounce a stone off water to trigger ripples when she asks if you're lonely, remind her you don't have time to feel that beautiful. Stumble with tumbleweeds struggling to pirouette over deserted railroad tracks. On a hay bank, mimic a mockingbird's iams. Pick dandelions set to be blown into dust. Chase a rabbit through a maze of cabbage. Make yourself a bed of leaves and fall asleep in its nest while cowbells sing in the distance with your dog napping under an apple tree, the shortest day of the year. Steal cherries from the grove when the farmer bends in barley stalks. They long to be stolen. Lean its seed on your mouth's crown, roll it with the rug of your tongue, warn your taste buds of its tart flavor. Let your smile dwell like soil caked on windmill wings. Linger on a low branch, worn by nomadic ranchers who stopped for the night to rest their viral bodies on a sycamore bark. Join them when they rise and flood the aqueduct along with gulls skidding on water, hunting for flapping salmon. And if you must go, go when summer is least, when fall has bled its last brown, before earth strips into the bare season, wrapping and marooning you in a cocoon of leaves.
Thank you, Melissa. That was just very, very moving on so many different levels. You took us on quite a journey from Jackie Robinson running the bases. And as a Yankee fan, I can tell you, we still think he was out. and the symbolism of him being safe at home with all that was going on in the Black community at that time, and all the synergy between Langston Hughes's work and Jackie Robinson's life. And we all learned about Olio, or some of us learned about Olio for the first time. That was just very, very informative. And the journey you took us, you know, from the concentration camp to your being there at your mother's stove and the magic power of Velveeta cheese and Rockefeller Center, and the contrast between Prometheus and the woman with the cup, and the elevator up and down, and the lost child and the car seat, and just that scene was just so vivid, and the elegy to your youth, and that beautiful tribute to your student. It was just all very moving and very beautiful. And we'll bring you back for an encore, definitely.
Thank you.
And we'll leave time at the end also for everybody to ask questions of Melissa as well. Okay, so we're going to move now into the open read. So just bear with me while I try to change screens and share my screen. Here we go. Okay, so those of you who are veterans know the rules. Those of you who are here for the first time, and those of you who are here for the first time, we're really excited that you're here. So I'll call the names that are in chat. Please, only one poem and no more than 5 minutes. Keep your microphone muted. Please wait to be called upon. And we will call you in groups of 3, and we will flex if necessary up until 12:30. We're not in a position to go beyond 12:30 because of other structural commitments, but we generally finish up a little bit after 12. So let me now call the readers, and I'm going to again call you in 3s. So the first group of 3, and when we call your name, please remember to put your microphone on, and the rest of you keep your microphone muted until you're called upon. So the first group is James from North Carolina, followed by Wendy, followed by Victoria P. So James, over to you.
Okay, here's my Biden poem for today. Had heard on Joe's show, which occurred a month ago, party for Biden throw. Give Biden a break. He caught a fish in a big lake, then would shake and bake. Biden wide awake, through bills had started to rake, started an earthquake. Let me get down here a little bit longer. Oh. Okay, coming right there. Okay, Biden wide awake, through bills had started to rake, started an earthquake. For God and his sake, what we do is to make Biden take a break. This is kind of on TV today and things I was listening to him. Okay, was insidious, perturbing, and pretentious, also hideous. What he had was weird, a bright and brilliant beard, disappeared when sheared. This is my comp line director at night. Thank you there.
Thank you, James. Over to Wendy.
First of all, thank you for everyone who makes today possible. Melissa, your work is so touching. I wrote this and it's dedicated to everyone that's lost someone to gun violence. It's called Thoughts and Prayers. It felt like a normal day. Dropped him off at school. Promised to be back after football practice. Now she stands in the glow of hundreds of candles, a vigil for the murdered children. A wreath with her son's name hangs on the fence. Hundreds of ribbons blow in the wind. Cards which she will never read lay on the ground. All those gathered offer thoughts and prayers. What value when her son is gone? Graduation she will not go to, a wedding that will not be, grandchildren never to be born, yet she must go on. You claim it is your right. Was it really worth her son's life?
Thank you, Wendy. Very, very timely and very moving. Victoria T.
Hi. This poem is called Standing in the Presence of a Cornfield. Did you ever find yourself in the presence of a cornfield, summer air cooling in shade of night? Feel the sky come closer as stars bloomed toward you from their glitter-strewn gardens? Somehow know the tall stalks are speaking their own sign language, conversing about the urge to grow, and sense in between them a density within the slim darkness, something waiting and aware, inviting you to wade in and stand side by side by side among them, in the midst of their shiny silken threads, their husks and tassels, their honeyed floral scents, where you might raise your arms in imitation, feel utterly inhabited by certainty of purpose, be still and entire, alone but not apart, soaked through with what you are. Know that soon, without hesitation, you will all lean as one toward the face of the rising sun.
Thank you, Victoria. Beautiful. Okay, next group of 3 is Bruce, followed by Paula, and by the always colorful JR. Bruce, over to you.
I don't have a poem today, Dan. Thanks.
Okay. Well, you were thought of. So there's not another Bruce lurking out there, is there? I missed someone else called Bruce? Let me know. Okay, Paula, over to you then.
Hi. So Daniel, you started the Zoom by mentioning something about how you meet people where they are. So I have this poem. It's a double tanka for my caregiver. Meet me where I am when I am feeling my worst. Just sit here with me. If I treat you with disdain, you can tell me off, okay? Meet me where I am when I am deep in quiet. Be kind and patient. And when you tire of me, I will release you with love.
Thank you, Paula. Very, very moving. Okay, JR, over to you.
Good morning, all. Thank you, Melissa. Very emotional read. So today is my dad's 13th anniversary. So this was written on year one. 9th of July. It's the morning my back tire was flat, was beyond repair, was half a carton to replace at the cheapest tire seller around. It's the day the pool pump died with a puff of smoke and a final sigh, and driving all over the island to find a replacement. The same day the kitchen faucet spit a gasket and a tank of gas later, it was a 4-carton day. It's the day I ran out, the day that never pretended to send an invitation, never loomed ominous on my empty calendar boxes. The day one more unplanned event took place, the day I quit. Yes, Dad, your day, 1,000 tears and 13 years, your day, now our day. And next year on our day, I'll mourn 14 years of tears and celebrate another year, 12 and counting, of smoke-free. Thank you.
Thank you, JR. Very, very moving. Okay, the next group of 3 are Dan Kerr, Don, and Shu. So let's hear from Dan Kerr. This poem, if I get emotional in reading this poem, it's okay, I'll be fine. And I lost one of my brothers last year. And it's called Taking My Brother Jeff to Church. My brother Jeff battled alcoholism and depression. Whenever the forces of darkness got the better of him, I suggested he find a church. It'll bring you closer to God, Jeff. The scriptures and the sacraments will aid you in your battle with booze. And the church community will support you in your various challenges. He responded, where was God when I lost my right eye when I was in my 20s? Where was God when my first wife died from cosmetic surgery? Where was God when my second wife died of a brain tumor? I responded, he was hanging on a cross, sacrificing his life for us and waiting to hold you in his loving arms. No matter how many times I took him to detox or visited him in hospitals and rehab centers after his latest fall and broken bone, I could never get him to church. If God exists, he said, I'll meet him on the water. He can find me in Long Island Sound. As I planned Jeff's funeral, the priest asked me if we had a body or we had cremains. I have his ashes. Do you have an urn? When I said I had his ashes in a tackle box, the phone went silent. After waiting a minute, I said, Canon, Jeff looked for God on the water, and this is what his daughter requested. Then let us respect his daughter's wishes, the priest responded. The entrance hymn that day was We Shall Gather at the River. The offertory hymn was Eternal Father, Strong to Save, otherwise known as the Navy song, made famous in the Titanic movies. As the bagpipes played Amazing Grace at the end of the funeral mass, I carried my brother's ashes up the aisle, and I smiled when I realized I finally got my brother to church. I'm looking at the tackle box now, And when I gather with his daughters and to spread his ashes on Long Island Sound, God and Jeff will finally find one another on the water. Thank you. Okay, Shu, over to you. Shu, you got to touch your mic on.
Good morning, everyone. I post my poem on the chat. Yeah, so there's a lot going on, but no matter what, nature always move on according its own pace, and here is summer. And so, bloom the blue chicory, and so this is a poem for blue chicory. Melancholy yet vigorous, unrestrained yet tranquil, stunning yet elegant, proud yet humble, bold yet gentle, delicate yet simple. By roadside, in the wild, under the sun, in the storm, living its summer dream in bloom. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shu, and we so much appreciate you've been with us each month, and each month you read one of your poems. Really appreciate it. Keep up the great work. Okay, Don, over to you.
Hi. My latest poem is called Would You Call It Treason? But it's kind of upsetting, so I think I'm just going to do a fun poem. I have a pond with water lilies and frogs, and it's a lot of fun. So I wrote a poem about it a long time ago. It's called On Viewing the Pond. When the sun warms the waters of the pond and the air carries the scent of life, when the duckweed goes to root and nymphs are hatching from the surface, the dark waters set me to thinking how it all takes place without our thought or effort. I see dragonflies skimming low over the black waters, green lily pads, blue heads with long transparent wings sweeping in erratic, impossible paths, soaring upward in the high bamboo, bright in the morning sunlight, coming low to rest on long, slender leaves. Red forms gliding through the dark waters. Together they slide one after the other under the duckweed and flat lily pads. They feed on the water's surface, large koi drifting through the water plants, how they follow one another as a stream flowing in the waters of the pond. A green frog sits so still on a lily pad. He waits knowing what frogs have learned to know of flies skimming over the pond surface, through and around the tall leaves arching, tiny hatchlings in the sun's warm waters schooling in the depths of the dark water, euglena and parrot feather revealed in the sunlight. I don't know if you can see the picture that goes with the poem.
Glad you can see it very clearly. Thank you for taking us all there.
So,
Kind of felt like that frog there for a while. Thank
a
you.
lot of
Don.
frogs.
Okay.
You
Now,
know, I tried for years to get frogs for my pond. Am I still on?
yes.
And it never worked. The birds must have gotten the frogs and everything. But about 2 years ago, there was a male and female tadpole, and they matured and laid an egg mass. And when the egg mass hatched the next spring, there were 30 frogs sitting on the water hose. And ever since then, we've had many frogs, and I guess the birds can't get them all.
Be careful what you pray for, Don. Okay. Okay, over to, I think we have one more that I see on the list, and if I missed anyone, I apologize. I do make mistakes. My wife can attest to that, as can others who know me. So let's go to Ram, and then we'll pick up anyone else who wanted to read that didn't have a chance. Ram, over to you. Remember to put your mic on, please. Okay, Ram, let's see if he's there. Okay, maybe Ram, I can see you. I can see you there. You can see you wearing your glasses and you got your blue blouse on, but I don't hear you. So you got to turn, if you want to read, you got to turn your mic on. It's a little icon towards the bottom. There you go.
Oh, hi. It's my husband's phone. This is Pramila.
Oh, probably. Good to see you. I thought I recognized you, but you got to respect people's names.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, I didn't even realize this. Thank you very much, Melissa, for your beautiful reading. I would like to dedicate this poem to Melissa. And it's from my latest book, We Are Not a Museum, which explores the history of the Jewish people in South India, particularly in Kerala. This poem, I think, is relevant for our times because we are surrounded by so much pain. There's so much bad news every day when we open the newspaper. So this is basically a poem to sort of, get to a place of centering. Evening Song. Place the menorah in the center. Light the 7 stems one by one. The glow grows and spreads around us. Our hearts are lit with its core. The warmth of evening flows out toward the sea with its merry trove. Sunset brings the water's message, filling our house with love. Place the menorah in the center. Light its 7 stems one by one. The beloved graces our table, lifting our hearts to the one most high. For eyes to see this light, for the fresh air we inhale, for birds chirping their delight, for the honey of life, we thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Pramila. That was beautiful.
Thank you, Pramila. That was gorgeous. I love you. Thank you for being here.
Okay. So we've gone through everybody that was on the list, and I suspect if I ask Kathy to read, she will. So as we wait to extend an invitation to Kathy, is there anyone else who wanted to read who didn't get a chance yet? Just wave your hand. Or wave your hand going once. Richard, Kathy, I don't see any others. Wave your hand. Kathy, over to you. Not to put pressure on you, but we always enjoy whenever you read.
Okay, so Sherry, you don't want to read? Sherry? No?
Sherry was driving somewhere and she
Okay, all right. So since we have plenty of time, I'll read a poem. Melissa, I have to tell you, I will carry these poems of yours all week, maybe more. Very deep, very thoughtful, and so real, like you sort of punch us with reality. And I knew you would be fantastic, and you were. Thank you so, so much for reading for us today.
Thank you.
And, just, I don't often do this, but, Richard, thank you for being our MC, and Dan, my goodness, you've got this really down to a science. I have to say it's pretty terrific. But anyway, so you're a teacher, Melissa, and I had an experience in Washington State, and I call this poem Art. Watching the sculptor teach his pupil where to cut, where to shave, after a while, he just gives a look. The film in the Seattle Museum of American Indian Christian White skips to the final product, and I am in awe. I will never create such a work of art. Feeling a twinge, I realize it's not the wooden sculpture that I am taken with. It's the look, understood between two people, no longer needing words. They're just knowing and finishing an original idea together as one.
Thank you, Kathy.
It was beautiful. Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, let's go one more time around the gallery. I don't see any other folks. We did have someone joined us for the first time. The Vicar of All Souls, Father Tom Reese, was with us today. and he's got a wedding that he had to go to, and he left a message for all of us in chat. He says, "My first time with you. Many thanks. Apologies. I need to head to a wedding." Melissa, thank you so much. So, okay. So, Melissa, why don't we bring you back now for your encore?
Okay. 1 second. So enthralled that I totally forgot about that. This is an old poem, but it sort of stands as the poem I wrote when I really first began to understand how to write a poem, and that is due to when I was at Sarah Lawrence at the time and studying with Kurt Brown for my MFA, and he put a poem in front of us by Baron Wormser, and suddenly everything made sense. And with that came the significance of being a witness. Pramila, this is all over your poetry, I know, so you understand this wholeheartedly. It's called Lord of Crows, and it's for Matthew Shepard. In a meadow of forget-me-nots, a farmer bucks barley in Wyoming dark. Inside a chicken coop, his son chooses eggs. He picks the best blackberries for breakfast from a bush. The boy runs into the house, slams the screen door behind him. He drops an egg. His mother mutters, "No yolk?" 2 miles west in Laramie, a bartender wipes the bar, counts his tips, and looks at his rustled trailer out the window. A stray cat rustles through garbage. The jukebox belts, "I'll be what I am." 2 men play pool. Another introduces himself as Matthew. He buys both a round. Soon the 3 set out together. In a pickup truck, a beer bottle rocks back and forth on the floor, striking Matthew's feet. Next to him, a Bible, barbed wire. They drive to a field of forget-me-nots, rob Matthew of his wallet, shoes, and pistol whip him, bound his 98-pound frame to a fence with barbed wire, and run him over with the truck. Leave. 18 hours later, autumn's ornament polished in blood. A crow pecks at his straw-like hair, slipping on his dented skull. A farmer picks the day's spuds. A child rides his bikes after blackberry and eggs. He mistakes Matthew for a scarecrow.
Very, very vivid, very painful. Okay, Melissa, at this point, I know you wanted to have an opportunity to interact with the audience. So before we call Richard back to close the program and introduce the next poet, invite anyone who would like just to come off mute and ask Melissa any question that you like or any comment you'd like to share with her.
Well, I would just like to start with a comment and a very big thank you. You know, first of all, I was so impressed with your intro at the beginning, the time you spent to discuss Duende and Lorca. You know, we don't see that often. It brought back the memory of what it is to be a teacher and how wonderful it would be if I was so fortunate. I can go back to decades when I was in 10th grade and Mr. Hockhauser, who was my English teacher, and actually had that same fire in terms of poetry in him and everything. And so I really thank you for that. Of course, your poems were exceptional and just so wonderfully intense with emotion and so just alive with that. So thanks so much. I just wanted to say that to you ahead of time.
Thank you. I feel better. I wasn't sure whether or not to keep in the intro. I said I think it was necessary for me to do right now.
Well, you know, it's interesting because, and I don't want to hog the conversation, but in medicine, I teach in a medical school. Of course, I play a role as an educator as well as a physician. And so maybe I appreciate that you did that and everything because of just, it added a lot, I think, to what you were doing.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments from anybody? Go ahead, Pramila.
Really?
Yeah. Melissa, thank you for your reading. I really admired your craft, how you're able to juxtapose images, how you're able to, say so much like between the lines, allow the audience to sort of get into a particular story that you're trying to convey. Can you talk a little bit about how you are able to bring in duende into any of your poems?
I think I always begin with the foundation of duende, which leads me to Dickinson. It's one of her most famous quotes, but Emily Dickinson said, "A poem is not a poem unless it takes your head off." Well, if you open the papers, we're getting our heads taken off every single day. So basically, all we have to do is replicate that on the page. But in order to replicate it on the page, I think it's important to remember that we're a different type of witness, right? So the intensity has to come out, but it has to remain controlled and understated, subdued in a sense that we don't dictate what we want the reader to feel. I hate to bring Hemingway into this, but he was a great advocate of leaving out adjectives. I don't always leave out adjectives, but I think it's significant to understand that the more we try to control what we're writing, the less duende we have. It isn't about control. It isn't about, well, I have the word blue, so I need to rhyme it with do. No, it's about, if you're going to use the word blue, let it take you for a ride. Where's it going to take you? Larry Levis speaks about, he does this, he's a master of this. He does this. One of his most incredible poems is called Oaxaca. He'll begin with a lampshade and you end up in, in Mexico somewhere, or he in those graves in Rome, he's taking a walk and he's talking in a cemetery, and there's this one line where he's, there are places where the eyes can starve. I mean, it to an extent, to go with that metaphor for a moment, it is about starving. It's about starving the reader for them to create and be tantalized enough to imagine their own experience in that moment. I'm not sure. I feel like I'm kind of all over the place. I don't know if I answered.
Yeah, I'm getting it. Definitely. Yeah.
I think duende, for me, duende has to be there. It means putting Natasha Trethewey, what at her reading, she lives that, that if you don't know who Natasha Trethewey is, she's an American writer who is just utterly incredible and speaks about her mother's murder by her stepfather. And in order to, keep duende alive, I mean, I think it means to stay where we are, stay seated. So if the tears come when you're writing, let the tears come. Don't try to control the tears. The more we control, what? Oh, I thought someone said something. The more we try to control, the less the poem wakens.
Anyone else with a question or comment before we call back Dr. Richard?
Melissa, I just wanted to ask about your Lord of Crows poem. Is that based on an actual event that happened?
Yeah, Matthew Shepard was 21 years old in 1998 when he one night drove to, I think it was called the Fireside Bar in Laramie, Wyoming. I met two other men, and those men actually flirted with him. So, made him believe that they were interested in getting to know him and whatever. and he ended up being murdered. There's a lot more to the story. McKinney and Henderson were convicted. It is the only time, I believe, in Wyoming's history that a judge actually asked his parents what they wanted to do. They decided to give McKinney and Henderson life in prison, where they are still to this day. They gave them the choice of life or prison or the death penalty. The story has been made famous by a piece of work called the Laramie Project, which is very available as a play. It was turned into a few TV movies. However, be careful when you do the research, because there is there are mixed stories. Some say that he knew McKinney and Henderson beforehand. Some say that he didn't. I'm not in any position to be called an expert, so I'm not going to give my opinion on that. There's a collection of poetry by a out-of-print press. And in that, I have it on my shelf somewhere. You can email me after, and if you want to know more about it, I can give you the name of it. There is a book by Beth Lafreda, who writes about living in Laramie and how Laramie changes with the death of Matthew Shepard, which prompted Obama eventually, I think, put into place a hate crime bill around the country. However, that hasn't stopped, obviously, the killings. It really was one of those. It was really one of those events that, and some people will deny this, that put Wyoming under a microscope and said, "This is who we are." I mean, it was really, his injuries were really equivalent to Emmett Till's injuries when he was kidnapped and murdered in '55. So what it did was it fused decades of hate, which is obviously still alive in this country, alive and well, unfortunately.
Thank you for answering my question. Thank you.
So Melissa, I just wanted to comment on your poem, I Am a Jew. Very deep, very intense imagery. I don't even want to keep, but will. I just want to share with you this experience of growing up believing I was half German and half Irish, and it turns out not German at all. And the majority of my genes, sent to ancestry DNA, finding out that I'm a large percentage Jewish. And it's not a shock because my mom was adopted, but it just altered my whole sort of notion of what is identity. And it's, I didn't know you were Jewish, and it sort of reminds me of just this whole thing that Jewish people carry, and maybe all ethnic groups do. We all have our wounds from a very violent history, but to be Jewish of all things is just so unique. There's a book I've been reading by William Hayen. He was a professor at Stony Brook. It's called Erica. It's Poems of the Holocaust. And it's just such an interesting thing to have this dimension put onto one. So I have to say that your poem really, really just blew me away. And I thank you for it, because you knocked my head off. Was that the expression?
Yes, Emily Dickinson's.
You did that. So
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I actually have German on my grandfather's side, on my maternal side, but Fidul Lebanese. So to have my dad's father Lebanese, my dad's mother was Greek. So it's a whole mess in terms of identity.
Yeah.
But in regard to the Middle East conflict, this constant push and pull of, it's hard to bite my tongue when I hear certain things about Jews being said. It's hard to bite my tongue when I hear certain things about Arabs being said, knowing that I am both. And I guess again, that's about, you know, going back to control. It's choosing what to talk about, what to speak about. Is it worth it?
One of your poems there where you talked about being with the kitchen with your mother, it was interesting, how she showed affection through food was just something that just transcends all cultures.
Yeah.
In this world, you know, we all got to look to build bridges and find those things that, you know, when people are different from us, that we have an opportunity to learn from them. And there's one thing that's common to all the cultures, and that is how food is used to distribute love to those they care for.
Yeah, it really is. I you know, to this day, I wish my grandparents were alive. The first thing out of both my grandmother's mouths was, "Are you hungry?" My grandmother would, on my dad's side, would make special phone calls
Yeah.
to ask me how much water I've drank today. And for the longest time, I'd criticize that and make fun of it. But now I find myself saying the same thing to my wife because she gets dizzy very easily. And say, "Are you dehydrated?" That's the first thing. So whether it be, you know, hereditary or just it's love, you know, it's love. But I actually, yeah, I mean, food is definitely a form of love.
Dr. Richard, I'd like to go ahead and give you the last word here. I've got a wedding
Well,
also. I got to go to the same one that
okay,
Father
yeah.
Kyle's going to be at.
We have to, only the thing I was going to say is, you know, the question is, who is a Jew? Is always so interesting. You have Pramila, who's Indian, you know, and basically how, you know, the Ethiopian Jews, the Black who were immigrating into Israel. So it's an interesting, you know, an interesting phenomenon, I think. We should move on though, I think, and time's running out, and I should introduce the next. So Barbara Siegel's gonna be with us next month, and we know Barbara from her actually participating sometimes in reading poems. She's a prize-winning poet, visual artist, deeply influenced by mystical worlds of nature and spirit. And her poems have been published in a lot of local places, and Pomanak, Transition, Oberon, One Sounds, etc., PPA Review, and she's been a long-standing member of the Poets Circle, interfaith minister, and actually was involved in Recce as a hospice volunteer. And her first published book has come out from Finishing Line Press, The Secret Road, Walking with Persephone. I'm sure it's going to be a wonderful reading, and I hope to see everyone, you know, on the second Saturday of August. And once again, thank you, Melissa. It was a wonderful day.
Thank
Morning
you.
today, very, very special.
Thank you for your patience.
Melissa, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for coming today. It's Saturday morning, the sun is shining. I'm sure you want to be at the beach, but thank you for coming here.